Welcome to MelanatedMagikTV, and I'm your host, Jessica X. And today I will be reading part 2 of 103 amazing facts about the Black Indian of the Western Hemisphere outline. Number 29. The U.S. school system and the media have been the two biggest giants behind programming into the masses fake fabricated images of the native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians. Native or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, built the pyramids and pyramid mounds just like the ancient Egyptians. This synonymous comparison of both cultures from opposite sides of the world is because they both were genetically linked. They both are the same people. During the time of Pangea, a Greek word that means all one, all of the continents on the planet Earth were one landmass. People lived and thrived during the time of Pangea. This is a large explanation as to why pyramid builders in the Western Hemisphere and pyramid builders of the Eastern Hemisphere have cultures that are incredibly synonymous. The continents continue to move. Some move 4 inches a year. The continents will one day become one mass of land again. The continents are currently separated at this time. However, the genetic link of beings from Pangea never parted. Now, me personally, I don't agree with the Pangea theory, but hey, it's in this book. I'm just going to read it. The term Moor, M-O-O-R, was applied to dark skin, brown skin, and reddish brown skinned people who were not only indigenous to Europe, but to the West and North Africans. Even Black Indians of the Western Hemisphere were also dubbed with that title. Indigenous Black Celtics, Indigenous Black Britons, Indigenous Black Portuguese, and Indigenous Black Spaniards, all also known as Moors, M-O-O-R-S, had a long time knowledge of indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere. Those Moors were well informed of the different customs, traditions, and languages of the natives of the Western Hemisphere, i.e., American Indians. Those dark-skinned Europeans, Moors, were used as buffers by pale-skinned Europeans to help colonize the New World. The indigenous Black Europeans, aka Moors, not only solicited the New World to pale-skinned Europeans, but also waged war on indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians. Certain Black Europeans, aka Moors, that went under such titles as clergymen and European nobility shared a common consciousness with pale-skinned Europeans. That common consciousness being that the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka American Indians, were untamed heathen savages. 35. Both dark-skinned and pale-skinned Europeans who were either Celtics, Britons, or what have you, who were fleeing religious persecution in Europe and were struggling to preserve ancient tradition customs dubbed pagan ways. Upon arrival to the New World, ran to the bosom of Black Indian nation indigenous to Western Hemisphere soil, who still hold on to and were practicing traditional spirituality. Both cultures were different. However, both were able to relate to other gods, each other gods. Black Indian nations and different clans native to Europe both share a common spirituality that centered around the forces of nature and honoring of the ancestral spirits. Number 36. Certain Moors helped to navigate Christopher Columbus' voyage to the New World. He wasn't lost. He knew exactly where he was going. He knew exactly where he was going, simply because of who was on the boat with him. And also, at that time, India was not called India. That is a new name for that country. India, before it was called India, had two other names. Hindustan was one and Bharat was the other. And during that time period, I believe that country was called Bharat at the time. So how was he looking for India when India was called Bharat at the time? So we're going to move on to this next one. Number 37. The U.S. constitutional government is a plagiarized copy of the Black Indian government system, the Iroquois nation. The founding fathers did not find anything. They went back to Black Indians, the Iroquois nation, seeking assistance to break away from their head chief back in England, King George III. The Iroquois nation taught them their system of government. The only part that the so-called founding fathers left out was the matriarchy. Black Indian women ruled the Iroquois nation. 39. Most Black Indians of the Western Hemisphere found themselves seduced by European lifestyles, customs, and traditions. When the American Revolutionary War broke out, Black Indians found themselves fighting against their own kinmen. Some Black Indian nations sided with the British, while other Black Indian nations sided with the colonial rebels, aka Americans. After the Black Indian nations helped to set up the colonial government, America, and in addition to help to sponsor military support for the New World colonial government, Black Indian nations continued to fight and war amongst themselves, as they did before and after Europeans set foot upon the Western Hemisphere shores. Number 42. Black Indians were not conquered by Europeans or the so-called white man. Black Indians had a rich history of intertribal warfare against each other that continued before and after European arrival. The intertribal warfare that existed amongst the Black Indians of the Western Hemisphere was so great that it left them in a state of incompetency, with the incompetency settling in after years and years of clan warfare, in addition to the attraction of European trinkets, customs, and traditions, and worshiping of the God named Jesus, all assisted in paving the way for European occupancy of the Black Indian lands, their spirits and their minds. Number 43. After the colonial government was established, America, Black Indian nations continued to aid the new colonial government with a military assistance on other Black Indian nations. that fought against European expansions and the taking of their ancestral lands. Number 44. General Mad Anthony Wayne, aka the Black Snake, was a black Indian who served under George Washington administration. The army of General Anthony Wayne consisted of mostly black Indians in the ranks, as did the entire colonial government army. Besides black Indians making up the bulk of the new colonial government army, parentheses Americans, Moors also filled up the ranks. Number 45. George Washington established treaties or contracts with various black Indian nations, as well as with the Moors, for military support against black Indian nations who did not support the occupancy of the new colonial government, parentheses America. 46. After the colonial government, parentheses America, confiscated most black Indian lands, the colonial government refused to pay black Indian warriors pensions for their military support. 47. During the American Civil War, black Indians joined the Confederate armies in hopes of winning to ensure what little ancestral lands they had left. 48. Other black Indians joined the Union side of the American Civil War to fight for their own objectives as well. One of those objectives being seeking prosperity within the American system. Stay tuned for part 3. Again, I am your host, Jessica X, and thanks for listening to Melanated Magik TV.